325 political parties are contesting this year's local government elections alongside more than 1,700 independent candidates. In exactly 1 month, South Africa will head to the polls. Tshiamo Malatji is a 23-year-old activist from Bloemfontein who's working towards helping those in his community. He believes that the community should be in charge of their own resources, such as creating shelters and producing food. He is an independent candidate for Ward 19 in Mangaung. Tshiamo, you are welcome to the program, firstly, and thank you for the work that we have read up on you about the kind of activism you're doing in your community. But speak to us about how you are planning on helping those in your community get the most basic services.
Thank you for inviting me onto the show. So we've already been involved in activist networks here in Mangaung, Ward 19. For instance, just last week, we helped fight off an eviction. We help tenants fight evictions. We work at a soup kitchen providing soup to people who are homeless and impoverished. We fought for a food garden at a local university and we achieved that. So it's less for us about what promises we're making, and it's more about looking at what activists, NGOs, community-based organizations are already doing in the area and making sure government does the same.
Well, Tshiamo, it's not often that you see young people taking part in community activism and leading from the front, basically, and also providing what seems to be assistance to residents in their area. Just speak to us about how your journey started.
Yeah, you see the youth of 1976, you saw in 2015, Fees Must Fall. Young people are politically involved. It's just that young people don't have a lot of representation in political parties. So as an independent, you're more likely to have a young person being able to contest for power. My journey began, Fees Must Fall, being activated at a university campus and realizing these issues are more important than just university politics. We need to address basic needs and resources for homeless people, people who can't afford rent, people who don't have food. And I think young people across the country are fighting these issues as well.
Let's speak about young people in your area. Would you say they are keen on bringing about a change in their community, just like you are doing, or are they losing interest considering the high unemployment rate, especially among the youth, and the lack of proper resources in poorer communities?
If you ask any young person about politics, they'll tell you they don't believe in the political system, they don't believe in elections, and I understand where they're coming from. Our government doesn't offer support to young people because young people aren't able to offer anything in return to our government. We're a vulnerable group of people. And I think even with this year's elections, there's a lot of lack of trust among young people. What I want to do is I want to bring the community together, not just the young people, everyone in the area, and at least show people that we can do things differently. And even if that enthusiasm doesn't get shown in this year's election, I think going forward you'll see a lot more young people contesting and believing in the political system.
There's also a general view that smaller community-based organizations face a daunting task in efforts to capture the minds of the electorate compared to the bigger, more well-known parties. But what makes you believe that you stand out in your community?
Yeah, so I don't see people as electorate or voters. I see them as community members who are facing real issues. And whether there's an election or not, I'm talking to people who are working on the issues that they're facing. Even the way we run our campaign. During campaigning, we're still fighting evictions. We're still fighting to provide food to people. So I don't think of it as what advantage do I have? How do we win the election? I just think what issues do we need to face? Let's continue talking to people to face those issues. And for one day in the year, they should go to the ballot box and we're asking them to vote for our campaign. But the day before and the day after, we just continue fighting for these issues.
Now, like you're saying, communities are growing more impatient with bigger parties running metros. This can be seen quite clearly during service-related protests. What would you say is uppermost in the list of demands for community members in your area?
You're right about the frustration. Here in Mangaung, we had a shutdown. There's current protest right now, and a shutdown's being planned again. I'd say the most important thing is that the resources that the municipality has should be used on the people within that municipality. So there's a lot of resources here, but that's not going toward people.
But how are you planning on going about putting power in the back of the hands of the people in your community, which clearly will take an example from you by actually putting their best foot forward and doing something about the situation in the area?
So some practical examples to go through quickly. There are a lot of abandoned, unused buildings that belong to the municipality. So they aren't private owned. They're municipal resources. These buildings can be used for youth hubs. You know, entrepreneurs can have a place for them to store their stuff, start businesses. They can be used for shelters for homeless people. There's unused vacant land. That land can again be used for markets, for informal traders, or to grow food. So those are practical examples of actually using municipal resources to help people. We've seen NGOs do this. We've seen activist groups do this. We've seen lots of young people fight for this at college campuses around the country. And so basically, I think any young person and government officials, all of us should be working together to make sure that unused, untapped municipal resources go toward helping people.
Before I let you go, just take us through your program of action. What else can we expect from Tshiamo Malatji?
Every day we're doing the same thing. We're fighting these issues on the ground. We're talking to community members. It's not about an election. It just happens to be that there's an election this year, and that's something else that we can do to access these community resources. So anyone who wants to know more about what we're doing can just go to our website, tsiamoforwillows.co.za. I'm also on social media, Tshiamo Malatji. Every day we're fighting issues. Right now we just had a massive eviction that we just fought and won. It's all about the very regular things that happen on the ground every day that you're seeing. It's about building communities that help each other out, coming together to address all of our issues.
Well, that's Tshiamo Malatji. He's an independent candidate who's going to be contesting in his area in the upcoming local government elections.